So today I'm going to do a technology demo of FIE Composer, which is an iPhone app that I'm going to be releasing hopefully sometime in the next month. It's for filmmakers, it's for hybrid storyboarding and pre-visualization. A quick overview of the topics, the order we're going to go through them. I'm going to do a very quick flashy intro of the software. Next we're going to talk a little bit about the purpose of the software. Then we're going to go into three specific areas of the software: pieces, characters, and cameras. Which we'll go over in detail a little bit. Then we'll go into a quick discussion of the application toolkit behind this software, what it can do now, what it's likely to do in the future. And lastly, we'll talk about the beta, which should be starting up in the next couple of weeks. So here's Composer. I'm just going to load up a quick test scene that I already built earlier today. So I'm just going to start by framing up my two-shot. I'm going to go into the camera head. Now I just placed the camera head, so of course it's not framed up. It's tilted down, looking at their feet, which is, whatever. So I'm going to start up my gyro head and just really quickly frame that up. Now the reality is that from this position, it looks like my lens is a little too tight. I don't like this, so I'm just going to flip over and move to a 35mm lens. Seems better. So I have a new lens. I just need to reframe for what I'm really looking to do. Grab that, say I like it, and just really quickly hop over here and level out my camera head and call that framed up. We'll head into the next camera, and likewise, this is just started this way. It's not framed up, so we'll start the head and grab that. This one's not right either. I want it to be a bit wider, so we'll try a 21mm lens. Say I'm happier with that. We'll just reframe again. Take that and level out the camera head. We'll say that is good for the second one. And then quickly we'll go to the third, again not framed up, so we'll just start the head, see where we are when we frame this up. This one I think is too wide. This is supposed to be a close-up. I want to see his expression and see his eyes. So 50mm lens seems good. Start up the gyro head again, and we'll just get that where we want it. Say that's good, and then again I'll use this thing just to level out the head perfectly just in case. Alright, so I've got all three of my cameras framed up, and what I want to do now is just quickly capture images from each of them and send them to my photo library. So capture 1, capture 2, and capture 3. From there I can go into any piece of software that can work with photos from the photo library. In this case I'm going to use Autodesk's Sketchbook Pro because I happen to like it. And my captured image is a background layer, and then threw another layer on top and just started sketching out the booth, the window behind them, just to give a general sense of the environments, things that it wouldn't be worth doing inside of Composer, where I'm just sort of laying things out. If I needed to draw faces or costume on these people, I could. In this case, I'm sufficing quite frankly just putting a label over Joe's head to say that he's Joe. This is now a perfectly valid storyboard image. Depending on the requirements of your production, you can go into more detail. You could hand this off to an artist to sketch up more. But the important thing is this is based off of real-world blocking, real-world lensing, and real-world posing. And you can take that file onto set and set your camera and set your environment. Tell your art department the size of the booth that you built, and get very deep into actually setting things up without necessarily even really having to go to full formal previs, using nothing but your iPad. What I want to move on to now, though, is an explanation of the purpose of the software. Simply put, it's a drawing aid, as in a drawing aid, except much better than this guy. This guy has some serious problems. This tool is meant to really be a more, much more comprehensive and more useful version of this guy for the purpose of complex storyboarding and filmmaking. Specifically, yeah, it's for filmmakers. It's for storyboarding. It's for concepting and design. This image back here is an example of a concept or design that I did using this software early in its development. It's for simple previs, not necessarily full-on, really complex feature previs of complex action visual effects sequences, not yet anyway. but it can handle an enormous amount of feature film previs pretty easily, as it exists right now. It's purpose-driven and simple. It's not a complex 3D animation tool. 3D animators will start to recognize a lot of the tools that are in here, but in reality, this thing is not meant for complex technical users of difficult 3D animation tools. It's a simple set of tools meant to be used by filmmakers and storyboard artists in the early creative development of film. Okay? So I want to just go a little bit and show you some of the basic constructs and pieces of the software, things that I skipped over when I just loaded up that scene. I'm going to start with a concept in the software called pieces. When you have a setup, what is the name for like an object, an entity, a thing in your setup? And the best sort of generic tool, like a name I can come up with, is pieces, as in this is a set piece, and So examples of pieces, they're generally sometimes thought of in other applications and environments as, quote, assets. A character, a prop, a vehicle, a set piece, a camera. All of these things are pieces of your setup. Before we go any further, I just want to show you what are pretty much the simplest pieces in the software, which is the cube piece. Go with pieces, add, shapes, cube. And here we have it, and then I'm going to choose to into manipulation mode. I'm going to make sure that my cube is selected. And under my manipulations, I have cube piece 1, the SRT manipulation. SRT stands for scale, rotate, translate. And so within this manipulation, I can sort of move it. I can look at it from the front, and I can put it on the ground. I can rotate it on edge and put it in the right place. Zoom out, go back into the top view, move it a little bit more centered. I see it's roughing out, it's blocking things out. But this is this is the most simple form of a piece. Besides manipulating the view on this bottom panel, I have other piece and manipulation specific items. For example, you can do type-ins and adjustments to the position, the rotation, and the scale of this piece in its SRT mode. Okay, so that's the generic, most simple concept of a piece. Now, a character is a piece. Now, there's a whole bunch of manipulations for a character. It's multi-touch posable. It has many different useful manipulations for working with, with characters. Partial poses, which is, limbs, arms, heads, torsos, and also full body poses can be loaded and saved as well to assist in setting up, in doing setups quickly and efficiently rather than having to pose every piece of the character by hand every single time. Pieces, add, characters, person. And you'll see a little person popped up at the origin. Go back into manipulation. I'm going to deselect the cube and select the person. Now I get a whole bunch of possible manipulations. I do have my top level person SRT. I'm just going to move him away from the cube so we can work with him without him intersecting too much. But I want to go through some of these more useful ones. So I'm going to start with stance. Stance is the ability to sort of move his legs and his feet and his pelvis to sort of figure out his general stance. As you can see, I can grab his ankles and his knees and sort of move him around the world. If I double tap certain things, they change their color and they change the way they manipulate other things. So, for example, by default, his feet stay pinned to the ground when I move his pelvis around. But if I want, I can double tap it, and then I can just move him from his pelvis in sum total. I can, rotate him around his pelvis either, or I can lock the feet, and then it's the same thing. It's just his feet are staying pinned. So anyway, that's the basic stance. Left arm, nothing particularly. It's as you'd expect. I can pull his left arm and hand around in space, pull his elbow. And unlike my wooden dummy friend, I can actually adjust this guy's clavicle. If I double tap the hand, then you'll see what it does is that it stays sort of stuck out from the wrist. If I leave it in its default mode, its rotation sort of sticks. So it's, no matter what I do, it stays pointed the way I left it. There is also a right arm, obviously, manipulation, which does the same thing. The head and the neck are another piece that's sort of independently posable, as in you can crane the neck around. And then if you double click or sorry, double tap, then you can pull the head around, rotate the head around on top of the neck. And this is a good example of those partial poses. On the partial pose panel, just click load. I've got a bunch of them. So I've got straight ahead, which makes the head look straight ahead. I've got up, which makes the head look up. I've got left and right, and rather than having to move it around every time, I've got like 6 or 7 of these things set aside for just generic partial poses for the head and neck. It'll speed things up for me as I move forward. And lastly, I've got the torso. The torso is fun. The torso allows you to sort of adjust posture in multiple ways. See, I can make the arms go with the spine, or I can lock them and allow the spine to go independently. And likewise, the hips sort of move independently of the rest of them. Leave his feet planted, and then if I need to, fix the knees because it pulls them out of joint, I can just quickly hop back into the stance and pull the knees forward, or in whatever direction makes most sense. But posture and torso in general, sort of the center mass, is usually a pretty good way to get a lot of character. Often I start with the stance, move to the torso, and then move to the limbs and sort of move outward. And lastly, I've got full body pose. Full body pose has no visible manipulation. You can just rotate around. That's because it's really just for loading and saving fully pre-posed sections. So for example, float. He's floating. He's like Superman. Lay down, sit up. He's laying down and he's sort of sitting up as a start, or just sitting. These are all poses. These are not built into the software. These are poses that I just put together without posing and then saved out. You can have an enormous library of these things, or make sense for the project for what you're doing at any time that makes sense for you. Anyhow, that's characters, and you saw it in the initial demo, but you can obviously have more than one character in the scene. You can have well, I'm not going to say unlimited, because at some point the iPad gives up, but I haven't put any artificial limit on the number of people that you can bring into this thing. It's just, I guess, what it can handle at any time. Cameras are another very important type of piece. Cameras, in order to make this really relevant to filmmaking, this is a fairly comprehensive camera. It has real-world lenses, real-world millimeter lenses, real-world configurable film backs. In fact, this right now it has preset buttons for Academy and for Super 35. Configurable aspect ratios. It does little sort of reticle lines for aspect ratios, and it has a good set, everything from 16:9 to 2:3:9. It has the virtual camera system for composing, where it uses the gyroscopes in order to let you pan and tilt the scene as if you were looking through the viewfinder yourself, without the aid of a large mocap system. It just does it, just the iPad. And it captures images to your photo library for publishing, or draw-overs, or sharing, or whatever makes sense to do with what is, effectively your virtual setup, or the image created by your virtual setup. Its purpose is to get that out there so you can use it in whatever way makes sense, even if you're just taking them, printing them out, numbering them, and using them as your storyboards raw, which is probably totally doable for certain projects. Because pieces add cameras, free head, and it adds a camera head to the scene, and then if you go into manipulation, I already had 3, and here's the one I just added, number 4, which, hell, we'll go with it. So cameras have 2 manipulations. They have an SRT, which you can think of as placing the tripod, and then they have the camera head itself, which is really sort of panning, tilting, rolling, and working with the film back and the lens and the capture. So I'm just gonna, we just added this thing, so I'm going to put it somewhere useful. We'll say we're gonna do a 2-shot from back here and over the shoulder from the distance. It draws the basic view frustrator just so you can roughly place the camera forward. It's nothing crazy. And then I can go to the side view and just lift it off the ground. As I said, this is like placing your tripod. It's like, okay, we put it down on set, now let's see what we've got from this angle. We might have to come back and move it, but let's see what we get. So look through the camera head. Camera head is, by default it starts with 27mm lens, and it's flat. So at the very least, we can, we should probably well, we can just quickly pan and tilt it into something reasonable so we can see where we are. All right, so that's what we're starting with at 27. I mean, it's not terrible, but let's mess around with some of our options here. First of all, we've got our film back choice. This is a Super 35 film back. This is an Academy film back. I'm going to stick with Academy because it's more standard. Probably before this thing releases, I'll have it actually tell you what you're actually currently at, as opposed to me just knowing it. B, it'll probably let you actually just type in inches what the width of your film back actually is supposed to be. I'll have more useful, a whole bunch more presets here, but actually also just the ability to do a custom one, which is relatively easy to do. It's just this is in progress and not even in beta yet. Aspect ratio, you'll notice the the reticle lines that it's already doing look like sort of a 185 reticle, and I believe that's what it is by default. But I've also put in DCI scope, 239 to 1, 16 by 9, 143, which is IMAX, and 133, which is NTSC. So you can, and these things do capture, so they do end up in the images, so you can actually see what you compose, and when you're composing, they're drawing. So they're useful tools for doing. I'm going to leave it in 239 for now. And then lenses. So again, this needs probably a little bit more work. It probably needs to tell you what your current lens is, and also allow you to type in an arbitrary one. The defaults that I put in here are basically what I consider to be a pretty standard kit, which is a 14, an 18, a 21, a 27, a 35, a 50, an 80, and a 150 millimeter. That's pretty normal for what you can assume is going to be in any feature film lens kit. Anyhow, you just pop them on and off. And see what's going on. So for this, that's too wide, 27, maybe 35, 50, 50 is too close, 35, well I think a 27 is about right. Okay. And anytime you can just, pop on the gyro head and reframe when you change these things. It has the, the same sort of rotation, and position, things that you can do with the other objects. And when I basically level out the head, all I'm really doing is loading this up and then snapping the Z coordinate to 0 degrees. Just leveling out the head. And then lastly, there's the capture button. At the very last pane for actually just grabbing this, and it just turns it, goes full screen, and then pops a copy off to the photo library so you can work with this thing. So that's cameras as they exist in the software. It's a very comprehensive camera. It mimics a lot of the more complex and technical aspects of what we build camera rigs to do when we're working in feature previs. Some possible future features for this toolkit, because kind of what I've shown you is what it does, and it's enough to storyboard. I'm using it internally for my own personal project right now. It is definitely enough to get going, but there are all kinds of things that you could do for this software going forward. So, some things that have come to mind, that are possibly even, some of these I've sort of built into it in the background or have left places for it to be put in. Motion capture integration in all kinds of interesting ways. I have a motion capture system, and I do want to do kinds of fun, interesting ways of integrating it. Real-time collaboration, sort of a mission control style real-time collaboration environment. This is based on a video game engine, and it does have real-time networking capabilities, and so it's really not all that unreasonable to think of this in terms of, I've got this thing going through my projector through an Apple TV right now, so to the extent that I could have 3 people sitting here and looking at this as I work, it already is a bit mission control. But if you could actually have 3 of these iPads existing in the same space, and you have one person posing one character, another person doing doing camera work, another person doing some background, setting up some backgrounds and sets. Your director and the bench, in the back, and somebody at the front sort of being the controller or the supervisor running the whole session and divvying out tasks. It's very easy to see how you could collaboratively, an expansion of this software could really create a room and an interactive space for doing this kind of work collaboratively and quickly and efficiently with a group of people. So that's, version 2.0, version 3.0, but it's something that I'm definitely thinking about with regards to what this thing might do. Mesh import, simple OBJ file format, mesh import and texture import. The ability to just sort of quickly sketch something up, put it on a card and throw it in the background rather than have to draw it in the storyboard every single time to just place it. Or the ability to have somebody very quickly rough out a set design and interior and for you to just bring it in as a piece and just plop it in, leave it at 0, and it's just that's what you're working with, is something that ultimately this thing should be able to do. But it needs to be done in such a way where the sort of cloud-based touch platform doesn't get in the way, and that it's well controlled and versioned and easily doable. Mesh export, the ability to take your setup and actually dump an OBJ mesh out and hand it to visual effects or to art department or anyone who can really just deal with 3D data in order to actually, not just be able to look at this and sort of measure on the screen where things are, but actually have a three-dimensional representation of what you did, including, the camera heads and the film backs and the characters, and just be able to publish that and give it to people to be able to work with, in a more complex sense. Slating, integrated slating, concepts of project and sequence and shot and version and that stuff, and that sort of being able to be burned into the capture and also into loading and saving to make it a bit more of a project managed way of working. Character customization, the ability to customize your proportions, possibly put faces or labels on the characters, that kind of thing. And there are many other sort of feature ideas that I've come across that I'm holding off for doing for later versions of this thing. Okay. A little talk about the application toolkit. The application toolkit that I used to build this is sort of something I built on top of a video game engine. It's sort of an accelerated generic multi-touch media creation and manipulation environment. It's based on game engine technology. It's network-based, so it has the potential to do this real-time collaboration I'm talking about. It's multi-platform. I'm starting with iOS and iPad. It's very easy for me to do an Android version of this. And I can even potentially do desktop versions of this with Windows 8 coming out and its multi-touch capability, and that machines are actually going to be multi-touch capable. I expect in the near future to actually be able to do native touch desktop applications. The toolkit is also designed to do desktop applications without touch off of a singular environment. So the concept of a desktop version of this software, it's possible. It's very doable in the near future. There are other apps in the works that I'm working on based on this application toolkit that do completely different things. This is an expandable go-forward kind of thing for me. Most immediately, I'm going to be moving into a beta test of Composer. I'm going to be ready to put it out for testing in a couple of weeks. There's still a few features that need to be added and a few things that need to be fixed. I'm looking for testers. Specifically, I'm looking for testers in general, and then I'm also looking for New York-based companies that want to try to integrate this into their production workflow, either for a commercial or two, or just try this out and see how it works. Okay. My contact information in general is brad@fie.us, and if you want to be part of the beta test, you can email me beta-request@fie.us. With all that out of the way, I'm excited. I'm already using this thing. Let's go make some movies. It's fun stuff. All right. Thank you for your time.